Welcome in, everyone. Running a little bit late tonight. Thanks for joining me. We're trying out some new technology and stuff, so there'll be a little bit of learning curve here. And also waiting for Russell to jump on. I may have to yell at him in a minute. So just hang for a second, and then we'll get going. Ironically, I'm in Dallas. We have a bit of rivals camp there, and the camp was a little bit of a bust because there were really bad storms. Some of the interstates were closed down up here, and some other stuff. I got some no's and some guys that are sort of like not really on the radar at the moment. So that's always good, but not worth coming out here for. So that was kind of a bummer, but can't predict Mother Nature. So yeah, that's where we're at. Rocking an Adidas shirt today. We will get into questions here in a minute. Let me ping Russell one more time. Just to remind him. Showtime. Okay, whatever. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat. I'll kind of jump into some of these questions, and then I got a few things I would like to talk about a little bit as well. So I'll try to jump around to the stuff that's a little more expected on my end, and then I'll get Russell involved as he jumps on whenever that is. Russell may have fallen asleep, yeah, as the chat said. So the only funky thing in my setup right now is I have to look down and look up because of the way the keyboard, without getting into a lot of technicalities, like how I have this set up in my hotel room is a little bootleg. So just bear with me if my eyes shift a little bit up and down. And I also have to keep an eye out for Russell. One second as I get this all organized. Yeah, it's funny. I went to school to like learn how to do all this video stuff, and clearly that didn't pay off because it's still a bit of a mess getting it going. So the first question, I'll wait for Russell. That's about the Falcons draft. I'll hold that one for Russell. Okay, so we'll dive right in. Everyone wants to talk about Miles Kelly. I'll share some thoughts off the top of my head first. Am I surprised that Miles Kelly went into the portal? No. Am I surprised by the timing of it? A little bit. I mean, this is the like 11th hour of where guys can go in. The portal closes on Tuesday at midnight, I think, on the 1st. And, guys can always come back, guys can leave. So it is a little strange that he waited till now to go in. He had a rough season. It was a tough transition for him to be asked to play man-to-man defense. Struggled with that a lot. Struggled in his role a little bit in the offense. Struggled with his shooting. And obviously, the thing that I left out of my story because I wrote it on my phone was at the Dallas camp is he had a back injury, and as someone that had that problem in high school, a bad back, and it can really mess you up and have a major impact on just everything in your life, from just how your day-to-day functioning is, let alone trying to play basketball or sports. It ended my high school career before it really even got off the ground. So all that has to be taken into account when you evaluate his kind of down junior season. It was interesting because he had leveled up so much as a sophomore. I think the expectations for everyone, including myself, was that he was going to be an all ACC level guy. They kind of geared him up to be like that, and then it didn't happen. And he seemed depressed, and the more he pressed, the the worse the results seem to be most of the time. And the way I look at it is maybe he does need a fresh start. I don't know. The door's still open. Technically, I don't think he's in the portal yet. I haven't seen the actual portal entry yet. I haven't checked with my guys yet. So it's Sunday. I don't want to blow up all of my I don't want to blow up my portal source people, but yeah, there's a chance he can come back. There's a chance that he has something lined up. There's maybe, not to be the tinfoil hat part of me would be like, well, maybe, maybe he's going to go to Arkansas and play for Coach Cal because Josh Fassner is close to him. Maybe Damon even helped set that up. Who knows? Um, in terms of how this impacts the team next year, I don't know. I don't think it's a huge turn of events, but we'll see. Who's joining me? What's up, Jared?
What's up?
So I was explaining to everybody I have a weird setup where my computer's actually below me. So you'll see me looking down. That's what I'm doing. Just heads up. But this is a much more stable setup for me. So
you got to explain the setup for me. It's going to give me a headache.
Oh, so I have my little tripod that I use to shoot stuff with?
Yeah.
My little portable one. I have that set up on this little crappy desk in my cheap Hilton hotel room. And the computer's below, right there, down below me. But I had to jack it up a little bit, otherwise it'd be shooting up my nose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted it more level. So that's part of the setup. And then I have the computer controlling all of the chat and all that stuff. So
yeah,
one of us has our things on. I think it might be you, dude. Have your notifications on. I was just talking about Miles, and this is the first thing I kind of dove into, is talking about Miles and his decision to leave and all the things that went down. The chat's very funny. And and if you get a chance when you watch the replay, check out the chat if you're catching us later. But just basically, he had the culmination of things go wrong. They changed systems, didn't work out. He hurt his back, which messed him up, and that can be debilitating mentally and physically. And then he just didn't play well, and maybe he needs to change the scenery. Maybe he comes back. You don't know. The thing with these portal things, how many times have we seen guys go back in? There's guys on the football team that still haven't gone in the portal that Russell and I both know are going to go into the portal. And it's neither one of us understand. I don't even know if Brett Key understands why some of them haven't gone in the portal, but this whole portal thing's weird how it all works. And I found it to be at best confusing, would be my way of putting it. But we'll see what happens. I'm curious what'll happen. They got Lance Terry back, which I think cushions this tremendously, because you have Javon McCollum, the kid they picked up in the portal from Oklahoma. So a combo guard. You have Lance, who's a combo guard. You have Jaden Mustaf, who I think might be the guy that really benefits from all this, as kind of an interesting, I don't know what he is yet, guard, some type of guard, big guard. Wasey, those guys all benefit, I think, from Miles Kelly leaving. So this was, of all the spots on the team, the one that you probably could handle the most, someone leaving, particularly with how crappy his production was at times last year. But yeah, I don't know. You texted me this morning. We were both kind of surprised by this. What did you think?
Yeah, I think, there was always conversations about him declaring for the draft. I think the surprising part and what caught people off guard was the transfer portal as well. But, in this day and age, everybody knows exactly what's going on. There's negotiations taking place, and you saw it even just to the east. in Athens recently with a kid who was getting ready to enter the transfer portal and
Preston Miller.
was talking publicly about his NIL and how he wasn't happy about it. It clearly was adjusted, and he didn't enter the transfer portal. So, I mean, it so far, at least to my knowledge, Kelly is not officially in the transfer portal. So there is still that, but the NBA draft process and things like that, I think that's just him getting feedback and wanting to hopefully figure out what it is he needs to focus on as he enters this pivotal upcoming year in his development. There's nothing against him, but the games I watched this season, he did not look like somebody who belongs in the NBA.
No, and he was a marginal ACC starter at his position.
Yeah,
with his statistics this year,
he was inconsistent. There were games where he completely disappeared, and you can't do that at that level, especially
at the shooting guard spot, which is typically your A or B scorer on your team.
Right? Yeah, shooting.
He had 3 games where he scored 0 last year.
Yeah, exactly. I think I watched all 3 of them too.
I watched all 3. I was at all 3 of them. Unfortunately. Yeah, it's tough. And I like Miles a lot personally. And that's the other part of all this that's been weird for both Russell and I with the portal stuff. It's like, I love Gabe Fortson, the football player that went into the portal from Georgia Tech, offensive lineman. He was tremendous to us and just a great person. But like, that's sort of the animal now with this whole portal thing. Like, it's weird as hell. And it's, I think, taking away a lot from college sports that people like, which is getting to know the players, getting to know their personalities. We used to do all like those personality surveys and stuff, and I kind of feel like at this point, it's like, what is the point of doing that? Because are these kids going to be around long enough for us to get to know them
right
on that level? So it is weird. So I saved this question for you for when you jumped on.
Of course.
Your opinion on the Falcons' first-round draft pick, Russell.
Oh.
And I'll note that
I was hoping we would avoid that topic.
I've known Michael Penix since he was 15 years old. So
yeah, I think
being recruited by Willie Taggart at USF.
Willie Taggart, everybody's favorite. No, I think the more you watched the rest of the draft and the way they attacked it and handled it, I think that was really where you kind of realized what their intent is. All of the issues that they faced in the last few years, they're trying to avoid. They clearly do not ever want to have a quarterback room as bad as the one they had this year when Justin Fields came to town and put on a QB clinic and had all of Atlanta, hopeful and excited that he could potentially come home, to the point to where I was one of those. But the draft capital that comes with the number 8 overall pick is, something to where you potentially could have traded down. Especially you could have traded with Minnesota, got those 2 draft picks.
I mean, I think they could have gone back 3 or 4 spots probably.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the Vikings, in my opinion, won the first round, getting JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. And I thought that was exactly what Atlanta could have done. But then reports came out about them being higher on Latu than they were on Dallas Turner. And that's where I kind of question their evaluation a little bit. But, they get paid more than I do. So I try not to think too much or be too short-sighted on things. But the big thing for me on the Falcons draft was the fact that they did not draft a corner. And to my knowledge, they did not sign a corner and an undrafted free agent that is worth much so far. So, and they don't have very much money, so you can't go out and go sign a corner. So that'll be interesting to see what they do there. But
maybe they're gonna make a trade. I don't know.
I was pissed. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was pissed.
We had a little text chain going to us, one of our mutual friends, and
I had my phone on DND because I was like, because I have YouTube TV, so I'm on a delay. And you guys in Comcast or Verizon or whatever it is these days, it doesn't have the lag and the delay. So I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my gosh, my phone, I can keep seeing it light up with a unread text message or whatever, and I'm like, okay, something bad just happened. I'm like, oh great, they drafted Latu number 8. That was my first thought because I saw all the messages incoming, and then I saw it was Penix, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I put my head
It's
down.
funny, man. Like I like saw it early because I think what's his name from Zach Klein was tipping the Falcons picks, and it just
Yeah,
happened to like I was doing something else. I had to get on Twitter for a second, and it like popped up at the very top of my feed, and I was like, wow, that was not what I was expecting to see.
yeah,
And then I started texting, and that was before our mutual friend saw this, and he was just like, what?
yeah,
And this is a person who knows like Arthur Blank and stuff too, so it's very funny to get their reaction to all of it. But
yeah. I thought Penix really handled the press conference well. I was driving home and I listened to it, and I kind of watched it too. But some reporter asked him about Mike Vick and being named Michael and being left-handed, and they pulled up a picture and found a picture of him wearing Vick's cleats. So if you read my Russell's Rambling column about going to the Masters this year with my oldest daughter, you would have seen that I at one point turned down Sunday Masters tickets to go to a camp and work with Mike Vick and spend a day with him. So that was pretty cool to hear. But there's still so many questions. We'll see what happens. If Kirk's struggling with his recovery, maybe Penix is going to push Heineke for those reps in the preseason. I mean,
got two guys with interesting injury histories now as your quarterbacks. But I mean, in their defense, since probably Vic was playing, this might be like their deepest quarterback room they've had since what wasn't Matt Schaub like there with Vic at the end of his career.
yes, he was. He
So
won
like
number
that
8.
was the last time I feel like they had like two decent quarterbacks on their team that could win a game.
Yeah,
And that's going back 20 years almost now, right? Like at least that was what I mean, it was at least 15 years ago, maybe more than
yeah. I
that.
think that was like 08. No, it had to be before then, but somewhere around there.
07, 06. I mean,
Yeah,
a long time ago. That was probably the last time I went to a Falcons game, which everyone always enjoys hearing. That I haven't been to Hawks games since they were in the Georgia Dome either. So um, it's not. I only go to Atlanta United games or Braves. I don't ever go to. I don't really want to go to football games on Sunday after working all day Saturday, and the Hawks are not really worth buying a ticket to most of the time.
fair point.
Even though I know you like going down there.
I haven't been to a
Here,
Hawks game since I moved back.
that
Actually,
is
I've never
fun.
been to a Hawks game, except I went to one in Cleveland, but obviously that was in Cleveland.
So you haven't been to State? You went to State Farm with me for games,
Yeah, but
right?
they played Mississippi
LSU
State, right?
or Kentucky, and then before that was the LSU game. That
Yep.
was during COVID.
Yeah.
I think you went to both those, right? They played. I think you went to the Kentucky game with me too when they beat Kentucky there.
Oh, I did not go to that one, no.
Yeah.
But I did watch them play, I think at LSU, and then the game this year against Mississippi State, where got to listen to both head coaches and their contrasting personalities.
the dentist and Damon Stoudemire.
Yes.
In your opinion, are there better options out there for the NIL that Kelly was getting? In other words, could there be silver lining that he leaves and can upgrade with the money he was lined up to get? So I don't know where everyone's at. I know where people were at like last year. As of right now, I don't know where people are for 2024, 25. It takes a little while for me to find those things out. Like no one's like bending over backwards to give me their NIL scoop on what's going on. Miles was the highest paid player on the team last year, as I understood it. Did not play like the level of money he was getting relative to his performance. I'm sure they were looking to push by Ndongo and Nate George up, and probably Miles Kelly's expense, or at the expense of trying to add a big man, or whatever it is, or Javion McCollum, or whoever they're taking care of. I don't know enough about where they're at right now with all that stuff to give you like an honest answer. But I'll just say that if he does leave, I think it opens the door for some other possibilities depending on what their budget's looking like. So
Yeah.
someone asked why
I'm not.
Miles is leaving. We don't know that part of it yet.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not well versed on everybody's average annual income or anything like that. But it does create a opportunity to add potentially or bring him back a type of player who might fit and be a stronger fit from a team standpoint instead of such an individual standpoint.
Um, I was just laughing at something in the chat. Someone asked about the big man situation. Do they anticipate? I mean, I still think they're going to add a big. I just don't know what it's going to look like. And the market's pretty, again, like sort of like last year. The market's tight. Like there's, Norchad Amir went in from Miami and had his wherever he's going lined up. Like a lot of those are done backdoor, back channeled. Georgia Tech's been out and more in front of guys, but a lot of the guys who've been out have been kind of long shot guys like Big Cliff from Rutgers, who was looking for $1 million from what I heard. Like that ain't the pool that Georgia Tech's fishing in. They were hoping to maybe get a Carl Hobbs discount, but I don't think that's happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, I still think they'll add somebody. I just don't know who it is. And I think there's still guys going into the portal today. So
Yeah, they got
clearly,
what, 2 more days? Well,
yeah.
that's the
Is it
deadline
Tuesday at
to
midnight
it's the
or like
deadline to sign the paper, or is it the deadline to go
so
in
it's the
now?
deadline to submit your paperwork to school. So like I tell everybody, whenever that happens, give it 48 more business hours after
Yeah,
that for
that's
them to
right.
show up. Because the schools can sit on their transfers for 48 hours and usually try to negotiate someone to not go in. I think that's what happened with, we talked about Kristen Miller earlier,
Yep. That's 100% what happened there.
Georgia.
And he leaked it out early to try to negotiate, and it worked. Although his rap career, the further away you can get from rapping, the better off he'll be.
But he rap?
Yeah. He had like a blur, not a blur, but like a short video where he was rapping about how if he was talking about money, somebody's gonna die or something like that, and
Oh, great.
talking about his NIL. I'll
That's
have to send you the video. I can't remember exactly what he said.
Russell and I have pretty good stories about a competitor in a different market that does some rap videos that are very funny. That is for another time and place. Maybe that's like an in-person story that we could tell one day,
Yeah,
and play one of those for people to get an idea of what it is. 75% of the team first year with the team. No, because you have Lacey back, you have Lance Terry back who didn't play because he was hurt. Nate, bye. Ibrahim Sawari didn't play. So it's 5 of 12 that you probably will play. So no, that's not 75%. You have most of your starting lineup back right now, actually. You lost Tafara and you maybe have lost Miles. We'll see.
yeah.
But you got 2 of 3. You got 3 of 5 starters back, plus guys vetted in, and Lance who missed all last season.
I think you and I can both agree if Miles leaves, it's for another school, not the NBA, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if he goes to the NBA, I hope he has brushed up on like some European Romance languages, because
Yeah,
that's where he's going to be. He's going to be playing in Italy or Greece or China, maybe worst case scenario for him, like somewhere in the Far East instead of in Europe. But I think he could get on in Europe. I
yeah.
mean, I think G League pays less.
Oh, oh, Kelly, we can't hear you. I can't hear you. No. Mm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now I can't hear you. Give me 1 second.
Russ Williams, can you hear me? Awesome. Peter, that's pretty cool that you got to meet Anthony Carey today. I know he was, I believe he was at the church. I saw somewhere on social media today. I think Christian Leary got baptized. So that was a pretty cool thing to see. I know this time of year, a lot of people are
There we
so
go.
judged in and locked in on the product on the field and don't really realize that some of these kids are also, human beings. Anthony Carey is a early enrollee getting ready for, his finishing up his first semester of college. He's got one spring practice under his belt now, but it's a good reminder when you get to meet those people that, they are humans as well, just like Kelly and I.
That's right. Even though people on X and even people in YouTube comments, it's funny. There's this one dude who keeps going nuts, thinking I'm like blocking his YouTube comments. He's getting actually censored by YouTube. It's
Yikes.
not me. It's getting like caught before it ever gets to me. I
Yeah.
see that this dude made a comment, like some jerk, and like it's like get a life. Like, what are you doing? Like, what? How sad is your life that you're like on YouTube, like
Yeah.
making like a horrendous comment to somebody or on Twitter or whatever? Like, get a life. Like, find a hobby, do something. I mean, your life really must suck if like that's what you're driven to. Like, holy cow! It just feels sad, is because it's very pathetic when I see that stuff happen. And
Yeah, you got to leave that lifestyle to the parents of former Georgia Tech commits.
we get it on all sides, people.
Yeah.
Um,
But just one other thing I wanted to touch on, we were talking about, declaring for the draft and Miles Kelly, is, the option that is not available to these kids who get bad advice, especially in the NFL. They are, declaring early for the draft. There were a few local kids who made the decision to leave pretty good situations they were in collegiately for the chance to get drafted. They worked, did their pro days. I talked to a couple of them today and yesterday, and they were like shocked that, the phone wasn't ringing, and they were told they were going to be like a 4th or 5th round pick. All of a sudden, round 7 goes by and their phone's not ringing, and they're having all these people at their house spending all this money on food and all 32 hats so they can be ready to celebrate and do all this, and all the whole opportunity just passes them by, and now they have to just fight. You know what I mean? They gotta fight their ass off and try to just
get a
get an
mini camp
opportunity.
invite and
Get a mini camp invite, get one
Yeah.
of those rookie camp invites that the teams are having next weekend,
like the
and
local
you just
kids and all
yeah,
that. Yeah,
because you can't go back to school. I mean,
play football in
you
college.
can't play football, and that's a difficult situation. But I think that's one reason why they have done what they've done with the NBA draft, where you can go almost through the entire process and then pull out to be able to, again, understand what it is you need to work on, maybe formulate a plan to do so. If you need to change schools to do so, you can do that as well. And then everybody can move forward. But
Yeah, the pullout date in the NBA is like 3 or 4 weeks before the draft. It's not months.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Yep.
So you get to basically do the equivalent of like the combine and all that stuff. Their NBA combine, I forget what it's called. It might be just called NBA combine. But it's been so long since we've covered someone that's been in one of those. Um, but yeah, so it'll be interesting. Do we answer the question about the biggest impact in freshman basketball? I
I
don't
know
know.
we
That was
did.
one
I
of my
think we
things.
did last time we were live.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is Mustaf, just based on it's easier for guys that are smaller to play.
Yeah.
Well, not smaller. It's like in college football. The further your skill position is away from the ball, the quicker it is for you to play the ball. It's sort of the opposite in basketball. The more you handle the ball, the more likely you are to play versus somebody that has to use their physicality inside.
Yeah.
Dorian, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, has a chance too. And so does Sutton. I mean, those guys are all pretty talented. Here we go, Russell. Here's a question for you. Win-loss, what does Georgia Tech need to make a regional?
They said what?
For baseball, regional.
Oh, to make a regional?
Yeah, what do they need to do down the stretch?
Man, just
They won this series.
Yes.
Which
Yeah,
was big.
to qualify for the NCAA tournament, First of all, they're gonna have to be respectable. Off the top of my head, I know they don't have a midweek game this week.
They need to probably win some in Charlotte, I would think.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely, you can't go over there. But this coming weekend is going to be tough against Clemson at Clemson. Clemson's been really tough. I mean, this is the stretch of the season that, in my preview, I haven't really been able to cover them day to day, but I'd say my preview is pretty damn spot on to exactly how things have, kind of played out. I mean, you look back and you had, I mentioned that the Clemson, Duke, and I believe it's Florida State series. Yeah, it is. Back to back to back. Those 3 series are going to define this season one way or another. You get swept in 2 of those series, you're probably not going to make the tournament. You win 2 of those series, you've got a really good shot to make the tournament. You just need it's somewhat of a showing in Charlotte. The big thing is there's a game against Mercer on May 14th. If I'm Jay Bad, I'm working the phones and getting that game canceled. Because, as much as the competitive spirit in my head works, they can win that game and still drop in the RPI the way it works at that time of year.
Yep.
You'll see tons of schools work out those kind of buyouts.
Just push the game back or whatever.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really tough part of college baseball, to be 100% honest with you. That part of that time of year is where you'll go Tuesday and Wednesday, you'll see maybe 5 to 10 cancellations. Most of them typically happen in the Southeast, between the ACC, the SEC, and the Sun Belt. And it's simply because, like I said, you can win that game, but no matter what the result of that game is, you're probably going to drop in the RPI, the way the RPI works. So that's the game that if they play, they cannot lose. But the showing, the explosion offensively this weekend, especially today, and the bounce back start from true freshman Tate McKee, that was exactly what they needed. I would say currently Georgia Tech has 4.5 if you count Ballard. I'm not 100% sure on Ballard's health, but you've got Cam Hill, Cam Jones, Aiden Finateri, and Tate McKee. Those are 4 pretty solid ACC starters. Especially for a first-year pitching coach and Matt Taylor. Taylor's been let's see this question. Do I think the Hall hate hurts the program? Shouldn't he be treated with respect as we transition? I don't really know if people on the message board strongly dislike Danny Hall and are eagerly awaiting the announcement of
a change of some type.
His resignation, his planned farewell tour, whatever you want to call it. Do I think it hurts them in recruiting? Maybe a little bit, but a lot of kids have really gravitated towards Taylor and Ramsey, especially at the high school level. And then when you get to the transfer portal, Hall is basically coming in on those meetings at the back end. The kid's committed to Ramsey, he's committed to Taylor, and then the conversation takes place with Hall, and that's where that relationship kind of formulates. It's not Danny Hall is out on the road every day he can be, grinding and hustling and doing that kind of stuff. That's not what a college baseball head coach does in the first place. There are few and far between that will, go out and do that themselves, evaluate themselves, and all of that. But for recruiting purposes, maybe, but the overall outlook of the program and the way people view it, if you live, I would say, in Georgia and you are not a Georgia Tech fan, that Georgia Tech fans do not like Danny Hall because of just the way not all Georgia Tech fans, but there is a vocal minority. That's the way to put it. A vocal minority of the fan base that have really, really, really been fed up and ready for things to change. But the majority of the fan base is standing by Hall, supporting Hall, and ready to see what he can do this season. Do I think that if he makes the tournament, he's going to get a contract extension? No, I do not. Do I think if he misses the tournament, he's going to get fired? No, I do not. I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen one way or another. And I don't really think anybody is currently, other than maybe Jay Batt and maybe Danny Hall. But that's kind of where my head's at on that.
And the thing that I've talked about, and I think's finally sunk in for a lot of people, is that the reality is you've just spent $15 million in the last calendar year and a half, less than a year and a half by the time baseball season's over, overhauling your basketball and football programs. So where is this in J-Bat's priority list? I don't think it's high up yet. I think when that dust is settled, then maybe it becomes. But to be honest, right now, with like the way college sports are going, like there's just so much going on for those dudes that like I think this is just not the A1 priority for anyone that's an AD at any place, unless you're Mississippi State and you pack in 15,000 people for a baseball game. Georgia Tech has not been that, and probably never will be. Like in terms of baseball, like that's a unique situation at a place like that. So
Yeah. I mean, that's
we'll
the
see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think if they don't, if they're still not like moving, if there's no like forward momentum, eventually there will be a change made. But Danny did a lot of great things. He's done a lot of great fundraising and things for the program. A lot of things behind the scenes that go outside of baseball that people don't even know about. With um, like Dr. Fanning, the guy who the Edge Building's named after, he tutored Dr. Fanning's kid in baseball. Like things that are like helpful to the Georgia Tech program overall, outside of just even baseball. And Danny's raised a lot of money and done a lot of really good things in charitable works and things like that as well. So all those things factor into this to a point. This is not Mississippi State or whatever, where it's. I think the expectations are a little different and it's a little more cutthroat. This is a guy that's been here for a really long time and had been very successful. Put a lot of guys in the major leagues too,
so
and has a lot of guys in the major leagues right now.
where would you rank the Georgia Tech job nationally? You don't really seem high on the job, so I'm curious.
I mean, I don't. Is it a top 30 job? Probably because of the recruiting area.
Yeah, it's absolutely a top 30 job.
But historically, I don't know. I mean, I don't. It's been so long. I mean, I covered college baseball really hard for many years, and then I stopped in 2010 when my oldest child was born. And
That was the year I graduated high school.
uh-huh. Um, so I mean, yeah, I guess it is a top 30 job. You have backdoored to really good recruiting areas. Um, I don't. It's not like a top 10 job, and that's what I've been getting at a little bit with the people. Like you don't have this history of all these like College World Series titles and all these
So
trips to Omaha and all that
is
stuff.
Georgia a top 10 job then?
I think they're on par with each other, but Georgia has College World Series title. Um, when I was a kid, actually, and saw them. That was the one thing we had tickets to growing up, actually. That and the crappy basketball programs there. And we went to a lot of games, and yeah, they were pretty good for a stretch. But again, they've fallen pretty hard off too, like over the last decade or so.
Yeah.
I think both programs have kind of stunk relative to their historical performance over the previous 30 years or whatever prior to that. You go back to Jim Morris and all that at Georgia Tech. That's what it's interesting because a lot of that stuff all started when like Homer Rice was the AD, and you had sort of the basketball program was terrible here too for years until Bobby Cremens. Like there was a little, you'd have to go back to like the '60s or whatever. Roger Kaiser, like with basketball, there were some real like kind of swan song, kind of mediocre years for football, it's basketball, and baseball.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think they're both top 20 jobs.
Somebody said in the chat they don't have all the trips to Omaha because of Danny. I mean, it may be true, but that did make me laugh. I mean, I like Danny Hall. I don't, it's hard for me. Again, these are the situations like Josh Fassner is a great dude. Danny Hall's a great dude. Like it's hard, and I don't know Danny anywhere near as well as like it's like a totally different relationship than what I have with Josh because I was around Josh all the time. Danny, I see a couple times a year, and he's always been very nice to me. But yeah, I don't know. It's I just don't feel like with everything that's going on, that's where you're going to spend your money right now. I'm trying to think of a better way to put it, but that's the most blunt way I can explain it. If you're Jay Batt and you have a set of resources, do you fire Danny Hall or do you invest in your men's basketball program and football program that make a lot of money for you when they're good? And so that's the math equation I'm fooling with the moment where you're trying to position yourself when the dominoes fall to be in a good spot as Georgia Tech.
Where do you start a men's soccer program?
I think it's tough to start women's soccer first because of
That's
Title
true.
IX.
Yes. Why don't you can start? You can get a whole academy going between the.
I got Angel Cabrera fired up about that when I asked Jay Bad about that when he got
Yeah, I
hired.
remember.
Angel was pretty fired up.
Yeah.
Well, the next commitment or portal win for Georgia Tech football, I assume.
I'd say this coming week.
Yeah, Russell's been hinting at some stuff coming down. This is about the time when kids start committing. Obviously we've both been talking to a lot of kids over the last couple of weeks, and I've been out doing all these camps. Russell's been talking to kids as well, and it's interesting because the Georgia Tech. So like today, I talked to probably like the number one, number two, three defensive lineman in 2026, kid named Jakeem Stewart. He won our MVP for the third straight year at the camp here, which is hilarious because he won as a freshman, sophomore, and now as a junior. Because the dude's just a beast, and from Louisiana, and normally like a kid like that would like laugh off if I asked him about Georgia Tech, and it was more like no, not really like into them at the moment. It was like they actually like ponder like because there's some kids I talk to and I'll generally just throw Georgia Tech at them to see what's going on and or if anything's going on that they've offered maybe or have had communication with. Ricky's like try to recruit that kid, Ricky Brumfeld. But it's not laughing, it's not like what it was. Oh, here's my great stat for those on the YouTube page. Everyone always loves the Jeff Collins hate. So Jeff Collins, as a head coach, he had 5.5 years or whatever it was as a head coach. He's yet to have a player he recruited out of high school and signed drafted. Now that'll probably change this next cycle with some Georgia Tech kids, and maybe Jared Ivey or some other ones, but like that have left to go somewhere else. But I found that very fascinating that he has yet to have anybody drafted. Like, because there's some pretty bad coaches that have had guys. Manny Diaz has had guys drafted from Miami they recruited. Like a lot of guys that got fired before him, and found that interesting for a guy that's like a hard, prides himself on his recruiting. Projected starting lineup for basketball. It's hard. It depends. They're going to price that. Depends on if they sign a big guy or not. If I were to play tomorrow, it would be a small lineup with probably at the 5, probably Wasey, and then 3 guards. So whatever the 3 guards are, if it's Mustafa or Sutton or someone else, or it's Lance Terry and obviously Nate George will start. And then McCollum, do they start those 3? Like, I think that's a little too small. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Or do they start a big man like they were doing last season to start Dorian or Soare and at the 5 and move by down to the 4, something like that. Like, I don't know. We don't. This ain't the final roster. I still think they're going to add another piece or two. NIL budget question. If Miles doesn't leave, do they have a better package to? I answered this earlier, sort of in a way. I don't know. I don't know where they're sitting at. Let's talk about. And this is something I told Russell I would talk about. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about Jahmyr Gibbs. That was my caveat to the Jeff Collins thing. Jahmyr Gibbs is the only person he signed that has been drafted. and that was a lot more to do with Tashard Choice than, bless you, Russell, than anything else. Somebody asked how relationship with Damon Stoudemire is going. Is he pretty open? Yeah, Damon's been great. When I get a chance to talk to him, I've tried not to bother him as much. Felt like I got a little too much of Josh Pastner, so trying to walk the line a little bit more, have a little more objectivity there. College football question: do they go after another edge rusher in the portal? And then let's talk about Romello Hyde a little bit. So Romello is essentially replacing Kyle Kennard in terms of like the roster / experience quotient. Probably a little more productive than Kyle per snap, I would think, if you go back and probably look at their numbers.
Yeah. A little less penalty prone.
Well, I mean, pretty much, I think every defensive end in the country last year had less penalties than Kyle Kennard. He was up in the very tip top of that.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
I just remember, it felt like once a game or twice sometimes he was making a big play one way or another, whether it be a face mask penalty or
third down penalty,
especially on a sack. There were a couple plays where he made a really good play. He was able to get off his block, was able to fight through. I think there were a couple running backs he was able to get past too, and pass pro, and was able to get to the quarterback, but his hands were getting all over the place. And next thing you know, there's a flag, there's 15 yards, first down. And I think more often than not, the offense scored on those drives.
So let's see here. So what do you think of Romello? You've obviously known him for a long time.
So, Romello was a kid out of high school who had quite the recruitment. He ended up at, gosh.
Oh, here's your stat. Sorry, I'll bust in with this. He led the ACC in defensive end penalties.
He led the ACC?
For defensive end penalties, yeah.
Yeah.
He was 6th nationally and 5th in the FBS. There's a kid at UCLA who had 9. Kyle had 6 that were accepted.
Wow. Yeah.
This poor kid at UCLA had 9. Holy smokes.
Well, going back
to all
to
the guys that had more, except for one, had significantly more sacks than Kyle Kennard too.
Yeah, that makes sense. But going back to Romello, his high school recruitment was he was committed to Miami.
Yep.
Committed to Miami during the before the season. I think it was like June or July, 2019. So this is pre-COVID. Starts to really flirt with other schools. Starts to talk to other schools. I think he had a really good senior year, if I remember correctly. And all the local schools who recruit Georgia pretty heavily, including Auburn, start to really show a lot of interest in him. And what ended up happening was Miami told him, "Hey, you go on the visit to Auburn. We're done." He's like, "Oh, coach, don't worry about it. I'm not going to Auburn. That's just internet rumors." Someone, I cannot remember how it ended up out, because the reporters were probably sworn to secrecy. The coaches were sworn to secrecy. Next thing you know, on social media, it shows Romello Hyde at Auburn. And the Miami coaches at the time, I cannot remember who was the head coach in 2019 there, but
that was Manny Diaz first year.
They were absolutely irate. And the kid
ended up. Yeah, it would have been Manny Diaz's first year, because remember he took the Temple job when Jeff left and they went to Miami.
That's right.
So it was Jeff's first year at Georgia Tech. So it would have been Manny Diaz.
So he ended up signing with Auburn, going to Auburn. Then 2 years ago, leaves, goes to USC. He's able to really kind of make a name for himself, make some plays, going up against a lot of spread offenses, explosive offenses in the Pac-12. RIP the Pac-12, and just really able to kind of show what he can do and what he's capable of. So he enters the portal in January, expects to hopefully find a place to go quickly. He realizes that a lot of schools already have passed their deadlines for him to be able to enroll for the spring. So he's like, well, shoot. Now he's just got to really sit back. So he, stays in classes at school, keeps working. And I remember when he entered the portal, I hit him up and I was like, hey, has Georgia Tech hit you up? And he's like, no, they haven't. They are they're past the enrollment deadline for the spring, but I'm really hoping to hear from them in the fall. So I'm like, okay, cool. So, time goes on. I have a really big note in my notes app where I keep track of literally everything Georgia Tech related. And I had his name on the list of potential transfer targets to look at. It was him, like Chuck Smith the fourth, and I think Jaquez Robinson, the corner.
Oh yeah,
from Alabama. Yeah. So I had Romello on there, and time's going on, and he visits Miami, and Miami is like a sure thing. He's going to commit there. They've locked in. They're telling all their reporters and fans that they are confident he's going to be a Hurricane. There's like reports out from national transfer portal insiders predicting him to end up at Miami, and I think the day one of those articles came out, they didn't realize that Romello was on campus at Georgia Tech and was going to commit while he was there. So Romello and I, we were talking leading up to the visit, and he wasn't really 100% sure kind of what the level of fit for him was in that defense. He wasn't 100% sure what their defense was going to look like under Santucci. He knew it was going to be better, but he didn't know how he would fit personally with his playing style. And obviously he visited. Things really heated up quickly, committed on the spot. And that was really, really the end of that story. But no, it's he's got a chance to make a big impact. I know he's excited to be back home. We could say it until we're blue in the face. The opportunity for Georgia Tech to land these kinds of players who want to come home, want to be closer to their family, and compete at a high level. That is what is keeping them going from a transfer portal standpoint. Being able to mix those kind of players in with the high level FCS players who are making a big impact, and they also might be from Georgia, or they might not, like Keon White wasn't. And being able to make a good eval on those while also being able to make the right decisions on the local kids. That's the formula for success for Georgia Tech in the portal.
Do you think they're going to take another rush? See, I don't know. I think
they'll take
depends
another
on the person.
Yeah, I think they'll take somebody who can maybe flex out and do multiple things.
I could see them going if there was like a really talented younger guy that went in that had a few years left. That makes more sense to me, because if you look at the way it's set up, you have Cruz and you have Jordan Boyd, and then they're both they're both freshmen. One's a true freshman. I guess Jacob's a sophomore. I think he played. He went over
I think he
on
did.
special
I remember
teams.
cooking from the.
But they're you're apart two really young guys. I think you would like to have another body there, ideally. And none of the other guys come in really necessarily fit that role. The dude whose name I can't pronounce, and then Monte Bradford.
Uche.
I'll learn it one of these days.
Don't worry, Flynn will get you a nice pronunciation guide before the season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I was thinking about Andy Demetra when the basketball team was messing around with Samato or whatever.
Stamto.
But like his full name and then Dorian's full name, and I was like, I gotta type these damn names out. Like, oh my god, like I'm gonna have to like copy Control C, Control V, like in their story if they start playing well.
Yes.
Is Georgia Tech in the ACC championship this year? I don't know what sport you're asking about, but I'm assuming football, and I don't know. Tech had no one picked in the NFL draft. Which players can you see being on scouts' radar from 2024 team?
Oh, that's a good question.
So I'll go through.
Yeah, I'll let
I'll
you
just go
hit.
through the seniors. This will be the easiest way to do it. Weston Franklin, yes. Jackson Haas, maybe. Haynes King, possibly. Though Haynes has another year left. Chase Lane, possibly. Jordan Williams, probably. Zeke Biggers, yes. Miles Brooks, if he has a good year, yes. Injury history there is a little problematic. Warren Burrell's an interesting one because if he breaks out, he's a guy that he has NFL potential as a cover corner. If he can actually play a full season and be productive, he has a chance. Kevin Harris or Mello Height, I think if one of them has a breakout year, could be a radar guy. Micaiah Scott, Trent Tatum. Trent Tatum's real interesting because Trent, if everyone remembers Charlie Thomas the year before his big year, kind of screwed around. He was playing safety and nickel, and then they moved him to linebacker, started playing well. Trent's always this guy that like I wait to see if like the light comes on for him. And he has so much potential and just has not played up to it all the time. And when it seems like he gets like pissed off, he plays better. And maybe they can channel that. Maybe that's like Santucci's magic will be like he channels that dude. Like what is the movie with Adam Sandler? Waterboy. Like like he's like picturing like somebody being mean to him. Whatever it takes, man. Like get that dude to like play fired up because when he's fired up, he played real well. Sylvain, if he has a good season, yeah, absolutely. I think Sylvain is a guy that has an NFL interesting body. If he can, he's a freaky looking dude when you look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
him.
you're really high on Sylvain. I've noticed that the past couple times we've talked.
Yeah, I think he's really undervalued by tech people. Just because he had the two injuries and they were really spread out in his career. He played two full seasons between his two serious injuries. They were both fluke injuries. And then the juniors, if anyone would declare out of that group, I'm not really seeing anyone that might declare. You could get into like if Amari Harvey had some great year or Clayton Powley or something, but I don't necessarily. That's hard to project. So yeah, I think there's more guys next year. The ones that are real interesting to me are the two offensive linemen, and I think Zeke gets drafted if he continues to play, develop the way he has each year. He's kind of leveled it up more and more.
You think Jamal Haynes can play in the NFL?
Um, yeah, if he runs well enough. Um, I think he's gonna have to be one of those dudes that puts out a freak time on the 40.
Yeah.
If he has another 1,000 yard season, he could get invited. So the thing with him is he's got 2 years left theoretically, so
Yes.
he could max out his time in college and maybe figure it out. The big thing with him too is I want to see like him be more dynamic in the passing game because he has that ability to be more of a weapon, wheel routes, those types of things that we didn't see a ton of, or and actually having the receivers block for him on screens a little better than at
Yeah.
times there's a little bit of a screen door on those screens. Getting a little more action, I think that's where them being able to size up a little bit slot could help him too in that screen game situation, swing passes and things like that. And yeah, someone mentioned pass pro for Jamal. That's a big thing he's got to keep working on too because it's tough for him at his size. Pass pro is not something that comes as easily, especially for a guy that played so much receiver after high school. And even in high school, he was playing running back. He was touching the ball most of the time. So, um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But, I'm not going to throw and put a sign on the Leo Blackburns of the world. We'll see Leo play. I want to see Leo play double-digit games for the first time in his career, be healthy before I start putting any expectations on that kid. Here you go. Here's a Russell question. 2025 commits to start rolling.
So just to explain the recruiting calendar here. So, this week, especially from what I've heard from high school coaches and friends around the industry is this is a big eval week. A lot
Yeah,
of
I've been
kids.
seeing everyone teasing, like going out on the road at different schools and stuff.
Yeah. So Georgia Tech's going to have coaches on the road this week. I'll have the updates on that on JOL as needed. And they're going to be evaling a lot of their, top guys. They're going to be seeing them work out. They're going to make some green light, yellow light, red light decisions in terms of, green light, they're going to take them. Yellow light, they're going to, try to push them off to get them to either OV or
Holding
to
pattern. Yeah.
come back or come to a camp in June. And red light's going to be, we're not going to really, continue to entertain this. There's a lot of that taking place right now. There's going to be a lot less visits going on in terms of high school recruits. A lot of transfer portal kids are going on visits all around the country right now. A lot of them are not getting reported on for obvious reasons. That's a frustrating part, I'm sure, as a fan. But at the same time, unless it's some, a 5-star transfer who knows where he's going as soon as he enters the portal, the more information that gets out there on a kid, the higher the price gets. And that's something that a lot of schools and those types of, on that side of things, are really trying to avoid.
There's a lot of espionage going on. There's a lot of staffs kind of copycatting who's going after a kid or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff too that goes on, and so they're always cautious and suspicious. It's one of the things that you'll see come up with with Damon in the basketball program, right? Like they're having to be careful about what they're putting out about who's on campus when they're coming on campus, because sometimes they'll get snaked out of a visit. Sometimes that puts a spotlight on somebody, another school jumps in because they're like, oh, they have a good history of evaluating position X, so maybe we should target this guy. There's a lot of that, and the coaches are always on edge about that stuff.
You won't meet a more paranoid person in the year 2024 than a college football coach when the transfer portal's open.
Yeah, there was a football coach who will remain nameless that launched into me one time about I had the story on someone going into the portal right when it happened. And they're like, oh, someone on my staff told you that person went in the portal. I go, no, and I sent him a screenshot of where one of my colleagues sent me a text listing. It was a screenshot of the portal and his list of dudes who went in from whatever school it was. And the coach was like, oh, okay. I thought one of my guys was telling you. I was like, no. I was like, I wouldn't ask because that's tough. I'm not going to push your guys on that because everyone sees it at the same time typically anyways. So it's not worth burning a source on.
Right.
Someone asked about how the ACC is doing with the portal.
Oh, I never actually answered the question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go back.
So I would say within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, because they're going to see. So you remember Chris Wenke, Russell wrote about this, went out and saw every quarterback that was on his board, and then they got Grady not too long after that.
Yeah.
He went and did his evals, and then they narrowed the board down and went with their guy. And I wanted to ask you about Grady. I don't think we've talked about him on this. Obviously, with the bad weather up here in Dallas, he did not come down to the camp. Nor was I kind of expecting him to. But just what is Georgia Tech getting with their quarterback commit for the 2025 class, Grady Adamson?
I would say the stealing for Grady is Baker Mayfield. There's the kind of the way he plays the game, the way he is able to go off script, whether that be escaping the pocket after 3 seconds, whether that be being able to make a play on a rollout, starting out on the right side, going back to the left side when the pressure gets penetrates. He's got the ability to make the plays that are needed. Is he the same level of passer and offensive IQ as a guy like Aaron Philo? Probably not at this stage, but the intangibles are there. The measurables are there. I cannot remember exactly what he measured at the Elite 11, but he was impressive. I've talked to our national analyst who covers the state of Oklahoma, and Grady is in line for a significant rankings bump because when his initial ranking was posted on Rivals as a 5.5, our current analyst Marshall Levinson He was not a member of rivals at that time. So you'll see some of that. And then I also think that, once that takes place, there might be, a little bit of a renewed push from some other schools. But Grady seems really, really locked in and focused, really loves what Winky's doing. Really enjoyed being able to go over to campus. The big thing for a kid going to Georgia Tech from out of state is, how close it is to the airport and how easy it is to travel in and out of Atlanta. I think that's one thing that doesn't get talked about enough when Georgia Tech starts recruiting out of state, is that, it may seem, far, like the kids that Georgia Tech signed out of Texas recently, for example. That's a pretty significant drive. But if you're going to one of the airports in Dallas, and flying out of there and flying into Atlanta, it's a quick trip. And, pending you flying Spirit or Southwest, it's probably going to be an easy trip. So, being able to have that ability, being so close to the airport, literally like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, is such an asset for them. And I think really helped them with Grady, because, originally the in-state schools and the local regional schools for an Oklahoma kid, Texas is loaded with, Power 4 programs, and Oklahoma, you got Oklahoma State, and then, some of the others that we're talking to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, if you can get a flight from, depends on if they want to drive down to Dallas or not, but you could get a flight for $200 a person round trip pretty easily, consistently on Southwest, especially booking ahead or using sales. You could fly Spirit for $50 sometimes round trip.
Yeah.
If you're willing to just take nothing with you other than a change of clothes and a little backpack. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's a different animal being in Atlanta on a hub, and being somewhere where you're near an airport that has decent service. You can get, it's the same with the New Orleans kids. Like, those are cheap flights in and out of New Orleans, or
Yeah.
you can drive if you have to, but you could fly if you want.
Right.
So yeah, for a quarterback, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at, Graham Knowles, he made that thing. Haynes King's parents come out all the time
Yeah.
to games. Or her dad will come for one day to watch the scrimmage and then go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I expect Grady to be on campus. Obviously, he's going to take his official this summer. They're going to formulate that on the big weekend, probably when, guys like Josh Petty and some others show up. But I think it'll be.
You want him there to recruit your skill guys.
Yeah, and he's already been recruiting as well for the the rest of the 25 class. He is talking daily with guys like Andre Fuller and Justin from from Raven Gap. I cannot remember. I got a lesson from him and his head coach on, I think it was Friday or Thursday, on how to pronounce his name, and I can't remember it right now. But
that's funny.
It was they're communicating regularly.
Hassenhut?
That's close, but I can't remember. For someone who watches as much German soccer as I do, you would think I would know, but
yeah, you watching what is it? What is the good German soccer team? My son plays with them in FIFA sometimes.
Bayern Munich.
Yeah, that's it.
Or Borussia Dortmund. Those are the two that everybody plays with in FIFA.
He's usually playing with Manchester City, which irritates Russell and another one of our friends.
Yes, it does.
And he has a what's his name jersey. He made me get him a jersey for who's the Man City guy that's awesome. Haaland.
Erling Haaland, yeah.
Yeah.
The man with the pony.
Yep. Do you know ACC teams recruiting well in the portal transfer talent? I don't know. Like I told everybody, I was going to look at this stuff when the summer rolls around. The portal.
Miami's had a big day, but
they got Damian Martinez from Oregon State, right?
Yeah, they got Damian Martinez. They got a wide receiver from Houston. I cannot remember who the national radio guy is, but he was blasting them. He was like, these are not the level of players that a playoff contender would take. And it's crazy how all of a sudden it gets towards the end of the month and Miami's all got some NIL to shell out for kids.
That they had to wait till like after tax season and everyone paid their tax. And what's his name? Who's that guy that's their big booster? Neville Shapiro got like his taxes paid. Now he's got some money back in the bank.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's been interesting, but it's so that Miami roster is still so weird to me because it's a place that's always loaded with talent. They still can't win.
Yeah.
They are not losing because of talent. They have not been losing for the last 20 years because of talent. Has much more to do with coaching and player development than anything the guys have been on the field.
Keep an eye on that roster.
Miami?
Yeah.
Okay. Hint. Miles shot the ball worse than EB this year. How much of an impact with fewer shots and a better shot selection have been had he stayed? Yeah, I mean, I think taking the heat off of him by having better performers around him and more of a confident offense with. You saw it a little bit with Nate as Nate developed and the games that Miles was on, like he played better in some of those. The whole thing with Miles was, and I forgot about this when we are talking about at the top, is like he'd have a half that was great, and then the next half he'd be terrible, or vice versa. He'd open the game and go for 5, and the second half he'd go like 7 or 8 or something. And like you can't do that. Like that's so bad for your team. It like kills your team when you're that inconsistent. What's the ceiling for the fall 8-4? To me, would be an incredible season. I agree. 8 wins would be an incredible season. I think your absolute max out is 9 with a bowl game, maybe, or 9 with like some spectacular luck, or hitting on all your guys in the portal that they all turn into what you hope they would be. But the schedule's hard, so getting back to a bowl game, I think, would be also a likely possibility. I think if you go below that, then you've had a bad season. So it falls somewhere in between there. They play this, what is 7th, 8th hardest schedule in the preseason going into the year. So playing 11 bowl teams. Someone correct me. Every FBS game is against a bowl team this year, I think. So from last year, so that's fun. So yeah, I just think it's it's a tough spot for Brant. But I'm excited to see what the product looks like. If as I've said, you get in the top 70 with your defense, you get in the top 50, I think they play in Charlotte. If you get in the top 70 on defense and the offense stays the same or is a little bit better, you're winning 7, 8 games. So I don't know. I got some barbecue for you, Russell, while I was out here in your honor.
Oh, of course. I
That's
didn't
about
get a
all
before and
this
after
trip's been
plate
good
this
for.
time.
What?
It must have, I said I didn't get a before and after picture this time. It must have went too quick.
I've behaved myself. I've been twice to barbecue since I've been here, and both times I've behaved myself and spent less than $50, which is pretty good at the barbecue place.
Yes.
Now we'll probably hit one more before I leave tomorrow. I'm not flying back till late tomorrow. Hopefully that'll avoid some news breaking while I'm in the airplane, which is, always a fun JOL thing is whenever I'm on a flight, something happens. So I booked my flight later tomorrow to decrease the odds of something happening.
But that's when kids get home. So.
Oh, yeah, right. Crap. Oh well. Appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. Spread the word. Tell people about JOL. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Make sure you like, comment if you have something pleasant to say. You have something naughty to say. Think about it if your mom read what you said. If she'd be mad at you and wash your mouth out with soap. Or would I punch you in the face if you said what you said in the comments to the would you say it to someone's face? If the answer is no, then keep it to yourself. That's my advice to people. And it's something I have to remember too, because sometimes I get snarky as hell. But like, you gotta remember, man, like you don't know what someone's going through, like why they're why you don't like someone, whatever it is, man. Keep it to yourself. Like nothing good comes of being a jackass on the internet. So appreciate everyone for joining us. I'm glad we were able to talk about some things. Well, we got in a little bit of Grady and the kid from Raven Gap that Russell can't pronounce the name. What do you
Yes.
think of him, real quick?
What do I think of him?
Yeah.
Oh man, we've talked about him, but when he was 100% healthy, prior to his injury, he was just a special talent. Had schools all over the country recruiting him. Had head coaches flying into Raven Gap on helicopters and doing all kinds of stuff just to kind of wow him. And he was a top target. Nearly committed to Clemson early in the process, and once the O line coach changed there, he didn't really mesh well with Matt Luke, and from there,
Your buddy Matt Luke didn't hit it off with him?
Jeep saw an opportunity and really capitalized on it, and has really built a really strong relationship with him. And Georgia Tech's had some recent success at the school with Trey Horn, and then Landon Lawson Pritchett and the PWO, and being able to just continue to recruit that area. I'm going hard after Lawson's brother still, Marshall Pritchett. So that's a school that they're really investing a lot of resources and time in. But when healthy, he's really, really special. He's about, I think he said, between 75 to 80% right now. Will be full go in the summer, probably maybe even later this spring. But at Raven Gap, they don't exactly do the traditional spring football setup like a lot of coaches do. It's more of a by appointment. You get to see them work out type thing. So with that, there's gonna be some schools who might start to flirt around with him and talk to him more, but he's 100% locked in. He shut everything down. He's just eager to get to Georgia Tech and have the chance to play for Wade and Coach Key.
There's a question about the Duke game and attendance stuff from Will, but I don't know. I don't like answering attendance questions. I have no idea what it'll look like. So hopefully it'll go well. All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. We're in 2 different time zones tonight doing this. So thanks for Russell for burning the midnight oil.
That's right.
For him. And we'll be seeing you on JOL this week. Look for a lot of interesting content as we continue to unwind some of our camp stuff that we haven't even got to yet, and also coaches on the road. So, and then the portal closing for basketball. So it'll be a busy week. Thanks everyone for joining. Remember, with the portal, it's just about when you go in. It doesn't matter when you exit. So people can exit all the way to the start of school at a place. So it's about being in the portal versus getting commitments from the portal. So if you remember correctly, who is it they added late last year in football, Russell?
Paul Moala.
Paul Moala ended up being a pretty much starter for them most of the year. So you never know what you're going to find in the portal late. So keep some of the worries to a minimum. Take a deep breath. And remember that all is not lost as the portal will continue to roll around through the summer. Appreciate everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.